Hey everyone, so just before we get into things, this machine, the M1 16-inch MacBook Pro with the M1 Pro chip, it's expensive. Like, it's really expensive. I think I paid about $3,000 after taxes, and if you followed my channel, you know that I can be extremely frugal, but also very measured with how I spend money. My video on how I use Tesla stock to buy a Tesla outlines my methodology well, and you can check that out in the description if you want to learn more. That being said, I put down money on this machine because it was the one that I've been waiting for. Like, this is the machine. I haven't upgraded my personal laptop, the device that I use to edit, write, and upload nearly every single video on this channel, in 8 years. So just with that in mind, I mean, for me, this is gonna be a good upgrade. If you're having a hard time getting them in stock online because the shipping dates are getting pushed pretty far back, Apple stores actually tend to have them in stock, at least many of the configurations, so I'd give that a check. One funny thing to note is that it actually comes in a bag that perfectly fits the 16-inch MacBook Pro's box. I hadn't seen this before, so I just thought it was a really fun little addition. Pulling it out of that box, you get your typical and classic Apple packaging, as well as some information about the product inside. At this point, I don't think I need to tell you how satisfying it is to unwrap this package and open the box, but it is still immensely satisfying. When you first open up this box, you actually can kind of see from the beginning that it's a little bit of a different design direction that Apple is going in. The top is unusually flat for an Apple product, and when you first lift it up, this thing is heavy. Like, this is a heavy laptop. And in the rest of the box, you've got your usual stuff, the new MagSafe charger with quick charging if you get the 16-inch MacBook Pro, the Apple stickers, the charging brick, and then you can see here in the information that I got the 1TB and 16GB of RAM version. Because I have a lot to say and I want to get through some of this, I'll start talking about my thoughts about this laptop while I'm showing you the unboxing video. I've been primarily using this laptop for about a week, doing video editing, typical day-to-day work, so web browsing and design for products and things like that, and it has been snappy and seamless 99% of the time. I'd say there are a few tasks, like when I have, say, 10 applications open, including my video editing and photo editing, and I'm also maybe starting import or exporting a photo, I see the spinning wheel or a little bit of that sort of stuff, maybe a half-second hang up here or there, but otherwise, this computer is fast. And this is the base model. So this is the M1 Pro base model, not the M1 Max, and it is still fantastic. The battery life has been great for everything that I've been using, except for Microsoft Teams on video calls. Then the battery drains about 15 to 20% per hour, so I guess that's around 5 or 6 hours of video calling on battery, which is good, but otherwise, I've used this laptop for about 18 hours over 2 days doing typical work tasks like web browsing, light video editing, and some voice calls, and it still had a little bit of charge left. It blew me away. I do keep my screen on at less than 50% brightness just because it gets kind of too bright. So in general, the screen is fantastic. I mean, the colors are uniform and accurate, the ProMotion display is smooth, and I appreciate the added screen real estate on the right and left sides of the notch. I mean, you get a great full screen experience, especially if you hide the dock like I do. But one minor note about that screen, and when it says 1600 nits of peak brightness with HDR content, it is very bright, and I actually have to tone it down a little bit because generally the brightness of the screen kind of strains my eyes, and sometimes it gives me a little bit of a headache, so I just feel like I need to have the brightness of this screen lower than on my old laptop for it to feel comfortable to my eyes. So my previous MacBook Pro could be pretty bright without bothering me, but I keep this screen and I use it pretty dimly lit. While the included ports are great because I shoot photos and still a lot of video on an older DSLR that uses an SD card, there are no USB Type A ports, so a lot of peripherals like my microphone that I typically will use to record voiceovers, or a mouse that I just want to plug in really quickly, those still don't just work out of the box. So I did pick up this USB Type-C adapter. It has 3 USB 3.0 ports, an HDMI that can only max out at 4K 30 frames per second, and it has an SD card reader as well as a micro SD card reader, which is kind of nice, and then also a USB power pass-through. I'll link this in the description down below. The speakers on this laptop are great, and when you're sitting directly in front of them, they do sound like really good Bluetooth speakers, like in the $200 range with impressive stereo spatial imaging. When you place it in like the corner of a room, they do fall off a little bit, but still sound pretty decent. Definitely the best laptop or computer speakers I've ever heard. I work at a home office a lot, so having high quality sound is an awesome thing to just have. The new 1080p FaceTime HD camera is definitely better, I guess, but honestly, with webcams, I never really am using it for high fidelity stuff. It's a little bit better, but it's still kind of grainy and applies some artificial post-processing and smoothing. I honestly didn't mind the 720p webcam of the previous generations because I don't think that webcams are ever used for like people who care about resolution very much. For example, I use the webcam a lot for things like Microsoft Teams, and those actually just get sent at like 680. So an improvement in just the resolution doesn't do a whole lot. Otherwise, it is, I guess, nice to see that they are improving it, and it looks fine. That's about it. You know how I said that I haven't upgraded my personal machine in 8 years? Well, I skipped the USB Type-C MacBook Pros entirely. It's as if I never lost out on the SD card. And it wasn't necessarily even in protest over the hardware. Honestly, I thought last generation's 16-inch MacBook Pro was decent, also very expensive for what you were getting, but decent. On the note, actually, of that 16-inch MacBook Pro, I actually use one of those for work. The last Intel-based 16-inch MacBook Pros, 32 gigs of RAM. I use that for work. It's my work computer, but it also has a lot of like corporate, I don't want to call it malware, but corporate bloatware that just takes up a lot of the processing power of the machine. So I personally can't even truly attest to how that machine is supposed to run, especially in comparison to this new machine. The one thing that I will note is that with this machine, only 16 gigabytes of RAM, it manages memory way better, and it reduces like just hiccups and slowdowns when I'm running 10 plus applications, sometimes many of them graphically intensive or just CPU intensive. It just manages the whole experience better than that 13-inch MacBook Pro. So unless you are truly a pro user, like doing crazy things, 16 gigabytes of RAM on this machine seems good enough. The fans rarely ramp up on this machine, which makes voice calls or just meetings in general really great, because on my previous MacBooks, when I was doing a video call or sometimes a voice call with other applications open, the fans would start to ramp up and you could hear that static sort of build up in the voice call through the other people's speakers or microphones, and there's just a lot of noise. But with this laptop, the fans almost never ramp up. It's only when you're doing something like exporting a video where they actually start to run. And just to compare the form factor of this machine to the previous generation, I like this one more. It's heavier, it is thicker, but it just feels kind of more solid. Ports are obviously nice. The keyboard feels great. It feels like a full iMac keyboard almost, like one of those detachable ones. Unless you're like a full travel mechanical keyboard snob, in which case, why are you typing on a laptop? I think everybody's going to be pretty happy with this keyboard. To wrap things up, I kind of want to talk about value. So, as I said, this is a very expensive laptop. The reason that I went with a 16-inch MacBook Pro is that I tend to use my laptop, my personal laptop, when I'm doing content creation as the primary display. And so when you're thinking about it, like, I'm not buying an external monitor because pretty much any other external monitor is going to be worse than this screen. And it gives me extra screen real estate to do things like video editing and then doing things like screen design or thumbnail creation if I'm creating a thumbnail. And it made sense for me. And that theme of this being the one machine to kind of do everything, it's true. Like if you think about value creation or if you think about investment, you could build a business using one of these machines, like a video content creation business, and go a long time before you ever need to change to anything else. And you know, I do relatively small scale YouTube stuff, but I expect this machine to last at least 6-7 years like my last one. And the last one, this channel was entirely made from it. So obviously it was a good investment. And I used that laptop to get through college. So if you have the use case for it and you truly know what you're going to use it for, this is a great laptop and it's worth it. And I do just want to remind you that if you don't think that you're going to take advantage of either the screen or the processing power, just get the 13-inch MacBook Pro or even MacBook Air. Like, it'll save you $1,000, $2,000 and will do almost everything pretty well compared to most other laptops on the market. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what your thoughts on this laptop are in the comments down below, and I will catch you again real soon.